Number 27, Shaolin Soccer from 2001. I like this movie. I really do. I mean, this is one of the better Hong Kong films that was released from China. The special effects are great. The storyline is basically about a group of soccer players. They weren't even soccer players to begin with. They were kind of like these kung fu, I don't know, these kung fu martial artists. A group of brothers, essentially. You know, they're all family, and they end up kind of being challenged by a bunch of, you know, this big time soccer team. You know, this big time soccer team, this corporate soccer team, and then it becomes a story about redemption, and a story about, you know, being the underdog, and you know, training hard and working hard in order to achieve your goals. And they included a lot of great, like, I love how they included a lot of martial arts aspects, you know, a lot of kung fu aspects in soccer. So they play soccer, they play the game, but they include a lot of like these flashy kicks and flashy moves that resemble kung fu martial arts moves, man. It's really kind of cool to look at. I mean, it's almost like an anime, really, the way they came across. I mean, the movie's well done. Great direction, you know, great action, and I like the ending in particular. The ending is one of the more memorable scenes as far as, you know, even a sports-themed movie. This movie is this is one of the ones that actually stood out. So yeah, there is a, you know, fantasy kind of element to it, but it's still a great movie. I mean, it's still one of those uplifting, you know, uplifting films. So, if you enjoyed that film, I also want to recommend Kung Fu Dunk from 2008. And that one is a Korean movie about, it's basically like Shaolin Soccer, except this time it's about basketball. So, Number 26, Ponyo, on the Cliff by the Sea. That's the full title. And this is another Japanese anime film. And it actually came out in 2008, last year, you know. And it ended up getting a worldwide release, or at least an American release, a Western release, just this year. But I actually ended up watching this film before it came out here in the West. It's a great anime. I love this movie in particular because, man, it reminds me of something like a movie from the 90s or the 80s or something, man. It almost has like this old school look to it. The animation is old school, you know. It doesn't have these fancy CGI stuff, you know, these fancy, beautiful, like, you know, graphics or whatever. I mean, the movie looks great, but it's all in 2D, and that's what I appreciate about it. You hardly get any 2D films these days. Everything is either like CGI, 3D animated, or a combination of 2D and 3D. This movie is straight up 2D from what I remember, and it's basically a story about a magical little freaking goldfish-like creature. Goldfish-like creature ends up becoming almost like this humanoid character, and then she befriends a human male, a human guy, and they end up becoming friends, and it becomes almost like this forbidden, I don't want to say forbidden, but you know, there's like this human relationship. It's almost something like a Little Mermaid kind of a storyline, you know, but it's still a great family movie. You know, there is some adventure aspects of this movie. There's you know, just like Spirited Away, it has like that Japanese anime kind of dreaming environment, you know, where nothing really makes too much sense. You know, there's a lot of somewhat nonsensical things that are just kind of almost like this weird dreaming kind of visuals, you know, like maybe you just don't understand what's going on. But I mean, this movie has a lot of heart. I like how this movie is just, I mean, there's this moral lesson in the story too, where you have these kind of this pro-nature, you know, this beautiful kind of relationship between this young child and this young little creature, this goldfish-like creature, and then they end up becoming friends. But humanity ends up kind of getting in the way because you got pollution and all that, and then you got kind of. I mean, it's more like a forbidden friendship, really. It's more like forbidden friendship because you got kind of like the Lord of the Sea or whatever, or it reminds me a lot of Little Mermaid. I mean, that's what it is. It's like a Japanese anime version of Little Mermaid. So it's got its own like Japanese anime quirkiness. This weird kind of. But the movie has a lot of heart. The movie has a lot of. It's a beautiful movie to look at, and the movie is kind of like this dramatic kind of movie too as well. It's not always just like it's totally kiddie, totally dumbed down. No, this movie is actually it's a great watchable film. It fulfills you. It's a very fulfilling movie. So I mean, if you enjoy this film, go check it out. And moving on, number 25. Friend from 2001. Okay, now this is Friend from Korea, another South Korean film. This is a great gangster movie, and actually it seems like it's the first gangster movie on our list. I like this movie because, I mean, this movie has great acting, first of all, great freaking atmosphere, and like just recreating like the scenes and recreating the kind of like the gangster nature, how these kids came up. It's basically a story about these young boys growing up in South Korea. They end up they're friends at first, and then when they get older, they end up being basically part of the gang. They end up becoming a gang, and they develop their storyline. There's a lot of character development here, and one of the boys end up becoming like this powerful gangster, and then they end up kind of becoming rivals with each other. They end up kind of like these two guys who were so close at one point. They end up becoming enemies because they're part of two different gangs now, and so they end up becoming like enemies now. And then it shows you like the lives of these gangsters, the lives. It's not. These gangs, they're not like glorified. It's not like this glorified, oh my god, totally romanticized version of gangsterism. It's actually this very realistic form of gangster. It reminded me of something like a Goodfellas or American Me, movies like that, where it's a realistic kind of portrayal of organized crime and kind of the drama that these guys go through, like the hardships they go through, the horrible decisions they have to make in their lives. And this movie is great, man. And this movie has a lot of humanity in this film. Despite being these criminals and these like basically these gangsters, there's a lot of humanity in their characters. They're just human, and they're suffering too. They're struggling, and one of the boys ends up kind of he ends up having to kind of like become the good sheep. Like all of them are like the black sheep, and he ends up becoming the good sheep, the only guy to actually kind of escape the bullshit of being in a gang. So it's a great gangster film. That's Friend from 2000, Korean film. And if you're a fan of this movie, if you enjoy this film, I also want to suggest, also try Clubbed. That's Clubbed as in club, Clubbed, Clubbed, from 2008. And this is a British film, basically about kind of a similar theme, where you have a group of friends, a group of guys that are banded together, and this time I wouldn't say that they're gangsters. They're more like a group of friends that hang out together, and they're bouncers in a club. But they kind of, if people get out of line, you got people that try to mess with them and try to fuck with them. They end up beating them up. They end up kind of beating the crap out of them, and so it's kind of once again a crime/drama movie. That it's one of those great movies as well. So go check out Clubbed from 2008. Number 24.